The 6th of April, 2024. A weekend afternoon in Bradford, West Yorkshire, England. On Westgate Street, a busy area in the city center, everything was as normal until a scream brought the street to a standstill. A young woman suddenly collapsed in the middle of the street while pushing a stroller carrying her 7-month-old son. Bystanders rushed to her aid. Some lifted the baby from the stroller to ensure his safety. Others called emergency services. Still others attempted first aid while waiting for ambulances and police to arrive. Within minutes, the Westgate area was cordoned off. Paramedics worked diligently, but the woman did not survive. Police quickly determined it was a daytime knife attack, witnessed by numerous people. But what made this case special wasn't just the location or the time it happened. According to the subsequent investigation, the man who had attacked her wasn't a stranger. It was her own husband, the man she believed had left England and was in Spain. An immediate question arose in the case file. If Coercive actor had been placed in a secret shelter for victims of domestic violence, how did her husband still manage to track her down? But that was just the first question. You've watched this far, so subscribe to the channel and join us in uncovering the truth behind the case. Before becoming the victim of a crime that shocked Britain, Coercive actor was just a young mother trying to find a peaceful life for her child. Coercive was only 27 years old. She was originally from Bangladesh and had come to England hoping to build a home with her husband. Like many who start a new life in a foreign country, what she desired wasn't wealth or fame, but simply a stable family and a better future. When her son was born, all of Coercive's hopes seemed to be focused on him. The boy, only about 7 months old, was the reason she continued to strive even during the most difficult times. Those who knew Coercive remembered her as a gentle, family-loving woman who always put her son first, but the life Coercive had hoped for gradually fell apart. After numerous marital setbacks, she made an incredibly difficult decision to leave her old life and start over. Coercive moved to Bradford and was placed in a shelter for women who were victims of domestic violence. It wasn't just a temporary home. It was an opportunity for her to break free from the past, escape the things that had once terrified her, and create a safer environment for her son. For Coercive, this was the beginning of a new chapter. She believed that distance, the protection of the support system, and a confidential address would be enough for her and her son to start a new life in peace. But there was one person who didn't accept that decision. According to the subsequent investigation, the man who had attacked her wasn't a stranger. It was her own husband, the man she believed had left England and was in Spain. An immediate question arose in the case file. If Coercive actor had been placed in a secret shelter for victims of domestic violence, how did her husband still manage to track her down? But that was just the first question. From the outside, Habibur Rahman Masum and Coercive actor appeared to be a young couple trying to build a new life in England. Habibur was around 25 years old at the time. He was Coercive's husband and the father of their very young son. To those who only met them briefly, they seemed like many other young families. A couple raising a child together, aiming for a stable future in a foreign land. Nothing about their outward appearance suggested a tragedy. There were no clear signs for those around them to realize that serious conflicts existed behind that seemingly normal life. This is also what makes many cases of domestic violence so difficult to detect. What outsiders see are only the moments that appear in public. What happens behind closed doors is only truly understood by those involved. In Coercive and Habibur's case, the gap between the outward appearance and the inner reality gradually widens over time. A seemingly peaceful young family is quietly facing problems that few people know about. Little by little, those closest to Coercive begin to realize that the marriage is no longer the same. The initial changes may be small, but when combined, they form a disturbing picture. But those closest to them begin to realize that things are changing. What Coercive faced didn't begin on the 6th of April 2024. According to the case file, it had been brewing long before, through a series of warning signs that, taken individually, might be interpreted as jealousy. But when put together, they formed a terrifying pattern of control. The first sign was phone control. Coercive's privacy gradually disappeared. Her calls, messages, and contacts became targets of surveillance and control. Next came jealousy towards male colleagues. Normal work relationships became a source of suspicion and tension in the marriage. Over time, the control escalated further as Habiber tracked Coercive's location. Knowing where she was, who she was meeting, and how she was moving made distance and privacy virtually non-existent. Then came the threats. Habiber was accused of threatening to kill Coercive. These were no longer words spoken in anger, but a sign that the relationship had become increasingly dangerous. In addition, there was physical violence. When psychological violence combined with physical violence, the control tightened, making leaving the relationship much more difficult and dangerous. Even after their separation, things didn't end there. Habiber continued to stalk Coercive. Geographical distance didn't guarantee safety when the other person remained determined to find her. Even more worrying was that Habiber eventually found the secret residence Coercive had been provided after leaving the marriage. What should have been the safest haven was no longer a secret. During the investigation, Habiber was also accused of impersonating a clinic to send appointments related to their son. That approach gave Coercive a reason to believe it was just a normal date. And to dispel any remaining doubts, Habiber made Coercive believe he had left England and was in Spain. If she believed that, she would be less vigilant. This false sense of security became part of the chain of events leading to that fateful day. Looking back at all these signs, they are no longer expressions of simple jealousy, but reveal a deliberate process of stalking, manipulation, and approaching the victim. It's no longer jealousy, but a plan of control. After a long period of living in fear, Coercive actor finally made the most important decision of her life. She ended her marriage, left what was once her home, and moved into a shelter for abused women. It wasn't an impulsive decision. It was the choice of a mother who wanted to protect her son, to break free from control and start over in a safer environment. Coercive didn't want to go back. She chose to leave. But for Masum, that decision meant losing something he had long held on to, control over Coercive. When she didn't respond the way he wanted, lived in a place he couldn't easily access, and refused to return to the marriage, the entire structure of control began to crumble. And instead of accepting that Coercive had the right to decide her own life, Masum continued to track her. For days, he tracked Coercive's whereabouts. Her move into a secret residence didn't stop him. On the contrary, it made his pursuit more deliberate. Then Masum brought a knife to Bradford. This detail shows that this was no longer a chance encounter, nor a sudden reaction between two former spouses. He had traveled to the city where Coercive was trying to start a new life, armed with a weapon, and approached her after days of stalking. On the morning of the 6th of April, 2024, Habiber Rahman Masum appeared in Bradford. According to the investigation, at approximately 11:30 a.m., he was present in the area where Coercive actor was trying to start a new life. For several hours afterward, from around 11:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., Masum continuously loitered around the shelter. He did not leave. His presence there was not random. What transpired indicated that he was waiting for Coercive to appear. Around 3 p.m., Coercive left the shelter with a friend and her 7-month-old son. It was a normal afternoon for her. There was no sign that, just minutes later, the lives of mother and son would change forever. At approximately 3:16 p.m. on Westgate Street in downtown Bradford, Coercive and Masum confronted each other. According to testimony presented in court, Masum tried to persuade Coercive to talk, but Coercive refused. She didn't want to return to a marriage she had decided to end, nor did she want to give up the new life she had worked so hard to achieve. Just moments later, the attack occurred in broad daylight, witnessed by many passers-by. While the stroller with the baby boy was still nearby, people rushed to help and called emergency services. At approximately 3:21 p.m., the first call was made to the emergency number. Within minutes, police and paramedics arrived at the scene. But for Coercive, all efforts to save her were in vain. Masum, however, did not stay. Immediately after the attack, he left the scene, leaving behind a chaotic street, a 7-month-old child without a mother, and a nationwide manhunt in England. But his plan wasn't over yet. Immediately after leaving Westgate, Habibur Rahman Masum did not attempt to turn himself in to the police or explain what had happened. All his subsequent actions were directed towards a single goal: disappearing before authorities could track him down. Masum's first action was to leave Bradford as quickly as possible. While the manhunt was underway, he called his mother. The content of this call later became one of many details that investigators used to reconstruct his entire escape route. Shortly afterward, Masum transferred money to his brother. This transaction occurred while he was trying to sever any possible trail leading to the police. Next, he took a ride to Birmingham. Instead of following a predictable route, Masum constantly changed locations, making the pursuit more complicated in the hours following the crime. But that was only the beginning. Masum switched his phone to airplane mode to limit its continued location transmission. He then bought a new phone to replace the old one, attempting to create a gap in the communication data investigators typically use to track suspects. He continued to alter his appearance. A new pair of shoes replaced his previous ones. His hair was cut short, his beard was shaved off. Each individual change seemed small, but combined, they showed a clear effort to make himself harder to identify. Masum also used a pseudonym during his escape. This suggests he not only wanted to flee the scene, but was also preparing for the possibility of being in hiding for an extended period. When all these actions are put together, it paints a picture very different from that of someone acting impulsively. From leaving Bradford, contacting relatives, transferring money, changing modes of transportation, disabling phones, purchasing new equipment, altering appearance, to using a different identity, everything happened in a deliberate sequence. As the search expanded, police began to discover that almost every move of Habibur Rahman Masum had left a trail. First, there was the CCTV system around the shelter. These images helped police determine that Masum had been in Bradford hours before the attack and loitered near where Coercive lived. This made the theory of a chance encounter difficult to sustain. Next, there were cameras on Westgate Street. These frames captured the moment Masum approached Coercive, their confrontation, and the final minutes before he left the scene. But Masum's movements didn't disappear when he left downtown Bradford. Cameras on the bus continued to record his escape route. Then, other images from Aylesbury placed him in a new location, showing he was constantly changing his route to avoid detection. Police also discovered threatening messages that had been sent beforehand. These pieces of evidence show that the danger in the relationship didn't first appear on April 6th. The threat had existed before, alongside the surveillance and control of Coercive after their separation. Another particularly important piece of evidence is the fake clinic messages. The content was designed to make Coercive believe she was receiving information related to her son's appointment. Behind this seemingly legitimate facade was a deliberate approach, exploiting her maternal responsibilities to lull her into a false sense of security. Phone data further supplemented the missing pieces of the picture. It helped police reconcile the time, location, communications, and changes in how Masum used the device after the incident. The testimony of Coercive's friend also became a crucial link. This person was present in the minutes before the attack and could describe the meeting between Coercive and Masum from a close distance. In addition, 6 witnesses in the Westgate area provided independent accounts of what they saw. Each was from a different position, but their testimonies all contributed to reconstructing the same sequence of events. Finally, the entire escape route, leaving Bradford, changing vehicles, switching phones to airplane mode, purchasing new equipment, changing appearance, and using a false name. Each individual action was recorded. When pieced together, they formed a continuous timeline that Masum could not easily deny. Cameras, text messages, digital data, and witness testimonies were all telling the same story. But the most crucial evidence was yet to come. At this stage of the investigation, investigators were no longer relying solely on witness testimony. What they needed was objective evidence. evidence that could tell the whole story. The first piece of evidence came from the CCTV system. Images from multiple cameras recorded Habibur Rahman Masoom's movements before, during, and after the attack. They showed him present in Bradford hours beforehand, loitering around the shelter area, approaching Kulsuma on Westgate Street, and quickly leaving the scene after the crime. This sequence of images was particularly important because it refuted the argument that everything happened in a moment of losing control. A person who loses control wouldn't spend hours waiting for a victim, but Masoom did. The second piece of evidence came from phone data. Investigators compared communication history, device data, and messages collected during the investigation. This showed that the stalking of Kulsuma was not a spur-of-the-moment act. The earlier threatening messages, along with the fake clinic messages related to his son's appointment, reflect a pre-planned process of approach and control. When comparing phone data with CCTV footage, the picture becomes clearer. This was not a random sequence of actions. It was a process of surveillance, approach, and preparation that took place over several days before the attack. This also refutes the explanation that Masoom did not prepare in advance. The third piece of evidence is the weapon. According to the investigation results and what was presented in court, the knife was carried by Masoom before approaching Kulsuma in Bradford. It was not an object randomly picked up at the scene. Carrying a weapon when going to Kulsuma's residence is a particularly important detail when assessing the defendant's intent and purpose. This detail also weakens Masoom's argument that he only carried the knife with the intention of harming himself. Because the entire sequence of events, from tracking her secret residence, following her for hours, and actively approaching her on Westgate Street, didn't fit into such an explanation. CCTV footage captured the journey. Phone data reconstructed the surveillance and preparation. The murder weapon proved Masoom had arrived in Bradford already carrying the knife. Three completely independent sets of evidence, yet all leading to the same conclusion. What happened on Westgate Street wasn't a spontaneous outburst. It was the culmination of a pre-planned surveillance and pursuit. Habibur Rahman Masoom's escape ended at Aylesbury. After many hours of changing his vehicle, communication device, appearance, and identity, he was finally arrested by the police and put through the interrogation process. When confronted with the evidence that had been collected, Masoom did not completely deny his role. He admitted manslaughter, but not murder. That difference is very important, because if accepted, it will turn a prepared behavior into an unintended, spontaneous moment. Masoom claimed that the knife was carried with the intention of committing suicide. According to this explanation, he did not come to Bradford with the plan to murder Kulsuma. But when that testimony was placed next to the entire data of the case, the contradictions began to appear. CCTV showed Masoom in Bradford hours before the attack. He loitered around the shelter area, waiting for Kulsuma to appear, then proactively approached her on Westgate Street. Phone data showed stalking, threatening messages, and clinic impersonation to reach victims. After the attack, Masoom's behavior also did not fit the explanation of someone who had just acted. He left the scene, changed his route, switched his phone to airplane mode, bought new equipment, changed his shoes, cut his hair, shaved his beard, and used a fake name. Each of Masoom's explanations seems to address only a portion of the evidence, but when those parts are placed next to each other, they cannot form a coherent story. If the knife was only carried to harm himself, why did he have to watch Kulsuma for hours? If the attack was just a moment of loss of control, why were there previous fake messages and secret searches for whereabouts? And if he was not preparing to flee, why did he immediately take a series of steps to hide his location and change his identity? CCTV does not change the narrative. Numerical data does not forget chronological order. And the more he tried to explain, the more Masoom's testimony became inconsistent with the traces he left behind. At this point, it was no longer a question of whether he caused Kulsuma's death or not. The only question remaining is what the jury will call the act by manslaughter or murder. The trial took place at Bradford Crown Court, where everything that happened before, during, and after the 6th of April 2024 was presented to the jury. The Crown Prosecution Service, CPS representatives, did not focus solely on the final moments on Westgate Street. Instead, the prosecution requested the jury to view the entire case as a continuous series of actions that spanned several months. First, there was the history of domestic violence. Next were the stalking behaviors after Coercive ended the relationship. The prosecution argued that this was not momentary jealousy, but stalking, deliberate monitoring and harassment aimed at instilling fear and control in the victim. In addition, there was a wealth of evidence of coercive control, controlling her phone, tracking her location, threatening her, continuing the pursuit after the separation, impersonating a clinic to approach Coercive, and making her believe he had left England all indicate a pattern of prolonged control rather than isolated acts. The prosecution also emphasized the element of premeditation. Masum brought a knife to Bradford, appeared at the shelter hours beforehand, followed Coercive, and waited for the opportune moment to approach her on Westgate Street. After the attack, he immediately fled and took a series of actions to avoid detection. According to the prosecution, this entire sequence of events is inconsistent with the hypothesis of a person suddenly losing control. On the other hand, the defense argued that Masum acted in a state of uncontrolled rage and did not intend to commit a premeditated murder. But after reviewing all the testimony, CCTV footage, phone data, witness statements, and prior behavioral history, the jury rejected that argument. The final verdict found Habibur Rahman Masum guilty of murder, along with assault, threats to kill, and stalking. The court sentenced him to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 28 years before he could be considered for parole. That sentence could not bring Coercive back to his son, but it affirmed an important principle of justice. When a series of coercive control escalates into deadly violence, every preceding act is significant and must be recognized as part of the crime. When the trial concludes, people often remember the verdict. But for those left behind, what remains is not the sentence, but an unfillable void. The one who suffered the greatest loss was Coercive's son. Only about 7 months old when his mother was murdered, he was too young to understand what happened on Westgate Street that day. As he grows up, he will know that his mother tried everything to provide him with a safer life. Her decision to leave the abusive relationship wasn't for herself, but for her son's future. In Bangladesh, Coercive's family faces lasting grief after the loss of their daughter. The geographical distance doesn't lessen the loss. On the contrary, it makes the loved ones even more tormented as they witness the tragedy that befell Coercive in a country where she had hoped to build a new life. The friend who accompanied Coercive on the afternoon of the 6th of April 2024 also carries an indelible memory. In just a few minutes, a normal walk became a moment that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Some memories leave no physical wounds, yet they linger for years afterward. In Bradford, the community held memorial services to express their grief for Coercive. Flowers, messages, and moments of silence cannot change what happened, but they show that she did not face the tragedy alone. An entire community shared the pain with her family and loved ones. Perhaps what makes this case most talked about is not only the severity of the crime, but also the lesson it leaves behind. Coercive did what domestic violence experts always encourage. She left the toxic relationship, moved to a safe place, and sought protection. However, the case shows that coercive control and stalking don't always end when the victim leaves. In many cases, the period after the relationship ends is the most dangerous. That's why Coercive Actor's case is more than just a criminal case. It's a reminder that early recognition of signs of coercive control, stalking, and threats not only helps protect a relationship, but sometimes it can save a life. There are people who never truly love another person. What they love is the feeling of controlling that person. While the other person is still around, that control is often disguised under very familiar names: caring, protecting, worrying, or jealous out of love. But when the other person decides to leave, that facade gradually disappears. revealing the true nature of a relationship built on power rather than respect. Coercive actor's case reminds us that love cannot be sustained by control. A relationship can only survive when both have the right to choose to stay or leave. When one person believes they have the right to decide the other's life, love ceases to exist. And perhaps the most terrifying aspect of this case doesn't lie in the final moments on Westgate Street. The most terrifying thing is that the signs have been appearing for months: stalking, threats, phone control, tracking down whereabouts, and behaviors that gradually erode the victim's sense of security. Sometimes, the final outburst of anger is simply the result of a long-standing, silent process of control. Therefore, the biggest lesson Coercive leaves behind is not only to speak up when violence occurs, but also to recognize and take seriously those seemingly small signs of control before they have a chance to become an irreversible tragedy. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel and join us as we uncover more real-life case files